Um, why the fuck bot Rick's not working? But um, I don't know. What up, Dell? This bot Rick's just ain't gonna show up. Suppose. Community. Maybe this works. Um, apparently, I don't know what's with everything or whatever, but allegedly, I don't believe it, but obviously I could be wrong. Check it here, scan. Works. Because allegedly, yeah. Th- Whatever the fuck it is, apparently, um, Roblox account manager is compromised or something, but I don't believe that. I think people are retarded. Datha Pro, Cheat Engine, Gunfire Reborn, RDP Wrap, RDP Wrap, BT Web Installer, RDP Wrap, UTEP Installer. none of that was that. I just, that I really don't fucking know. Fuck, they think. Doing, really? Because from what I see, it's just that. Wait, where the fuck it? Did I just close the RDP? Fuck, did I accidentally do that? Whoops. Why did I do that? Oh well. Time to end results. No. Like I said, I don't fucking know. Because what everybody was saying yesterday was like, what is it? Yesterday it was a fucking, whatever. Goddamn. Or what happened yesterday with me. Wait, what? Okay. But no, yesterday I was doing, this real quick. Yeah, but it was 20 hours ago. And there's a reason it updated. And I can tell you, the reason I updated, because I updated it 20 hours ago. Right when it happened. Know why? Because Roblox account manager wasn't working. The previous version. The previous version, it kept saying that there's an invalid authentication ticket. So it wasn't even allowing me to fucking, what is it? It was not even allowing me to play. You feel me? And then the update today was to do that, and then now everybody is saying, my phone. Because I just woke up and saw people were like, this is yada 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 happening. I got added. Um, yeah, somebody just said, yeah, because these people in my chat are like, use an account manager regarding Roblox account manager. I've checked the latest repo and compiled locally. I consider it safe and the AVs are triggering a false positive. Considering some of the window APIs the app is calling, I'm not surprised they're flagging it, but it's benign nonetheless. Yeah, and I literally just had Braden looking at. Like I said, I had the most part for me, like I haven't had issues with it. Maybe whenever I log onto these accounts right now, all of them are fucking gone or some stupid shit like that. It's like, yep, good job, retard. We were waiting for you to get on. Stupid ass. Uh, like I said, I feel like if it was a whatever, wouldn't, I don't know, wouldn't shit actually got fucked over yesterday? I feel like shit. Billy, shut the fuck up. Not taking anyone's accounts, retard. That's the thing. Not taking anyone's accounts. And if it was, wouldn't they have already done it already? Okay. Which game? Like I said, my biggest thing is like, if it was, like, let's just say it is, you know, uh, let's just say it is a fucking, like it did get whatevered. Wouldn't it been fucking told about or even mentioned nearly, it's been 20 fucking hours, but people are now just saying it? Because I don't know if anybody else knows it or not anyway. Um, why the fuck would they, or, hold on, I forgot what I was gonna say. I'm retarded. Um, my thing is, if it was on some shit like that, wouldn't they have already, you know, taken shit? And if it is, like, let's just say it is this big virus or malware, why the fuck is it being reported 18 hours later? Like, this update, like, if the update literally just came out, right? If it came out 2 hours ago when everybody was saying it was compromised, wouldn't, don't people think, what I'm just saying is like, if this shit was compromised, wouldn't people have already taken shit? Like, maybe I'm specifically tripping, but I feel like people would have been take shit, and it would have been reported way earlier than, you know, all this time later. Also, why is Botrix not working? Botrix, why you being a hoe? Hey, dumbass, I don't think that. I got notified in multiple servers. If I still thought it, why the fuck did I just use it right now, Dell? You retarded, honestly. That's strike two already. Strike three, I'm gonna just start timing you out. I see what you're doing right now. You doing shit to piss me off. Or you just dumb for real. Why is this account? Because like I said, I downloaded immediately because whenever I had to open the browser to use it, that shit was making my game use even more data or whatever. So I actually liked the update, but like I said, I don't really know. At the end of the day, it don't even really matter to me. I'm real. Like I said, I don't think they're going after people. And if they are, it definitely ain't me. So it don't even matter to me off that fact. But even then, like there's more than just Pet Simulator that people use Roblox Account Manager for. Roblox Account Manager Discord. Also, it's open source as well. Like all of it, you could literally look up too. Like I said, at the end of the day, I really don't know. But what I do know is that I was, the reason the update, I liked it. And the reason I liked it is because of the fact, hey, you know, now I could, actually use it. Because, you know, I was using it before, but it wasn't working. Playback hotkey. Alright, let me see if it actually fully works or not. Why does my headset do this now, man? Because like I said as well, the biggest thing to me is just the fact that like whenever there's, maybe it's different because it was Skyblock or something, who knows. But I always feel like with like shit like Skyblock too, or whatever, whenever you would what is it? Whenever something was compromised and like that, people would immediately like notice it. Like I said, personally for me, I just believe it was probably one retard after the other. Like somebody's like, "Wait, why does this why is this saying this is a Trojan? Why does it say it's gonna hack me?" When like you literally go to the fucking page for, what is it? You go to the page for the what is it, Roblox account manager, it already gives you a fucking description of why it flags as a virus anyway. Because that was another thing I was confused about. I'm like, y'all know that this shit has always been like flagged as a virus of some sort, right? Like, y'all know this isn't new. Because that was my biggest thing. Because I'm like, this has been a thing. Because what I think it was is like a lot of people yesterday using Roblox account manager, they didn't have the issue with like me and you, where they what is it? Hold on, Leah. You fixed the RDP? Yeah, literally all I had to do, Leah, was what is it? Why is this not counting as a thing for me? There we go. But basically it was or what I figured out is that hey, or I figured out how to actually make all three of these accounts be at 30 FPS. That was the issue. Which I appreciate you helping me with that. Yeah, they were all at like 150 plus FPS. That's why I was basically nearly exploding my PC. It's not even that deleter. Like I said, it's just retarded. And of course, there's retarded kids in comments and shit talking about some, what is it? They talking about some, oh, that's why my account got hacked earlier. It's like, no, you clicked a link. That's why your account got hacked, retard. Because that's another reason why you can't really trust it anyway, is just because of that fact. It's like, of course these retards are saying that. They're like, oh, I find. They're like Drake on the heart part. So he's like, oh, I just made the connection. Like, you didn't. You didn't make any connection. It is. And I even had a friend of mine. Oh, shit, gay boy. Uh, I had somebody look it up. Because the thing is, Leah, what happened is, I don't know if you had this issue like me and Dell had with the previous version of Roblox Account Manager. Whenever we would try to use it, it kept saying, warning, invalid authentication token, error. And it wouldn't let us play. Or let us even open it without playing the game. It required you to have to go to the open browser and click that, and it worked. And so, the new update, like the new update or whatever, it literally fixed that. Like the only thing it updated was fix that issue. And the thing is, I started getting notified 2 hours ago about the quote unquote hack, right? And it's like what is it? Wait, timeout. Holy shit, this person's fucking retarded. At NPC NPC HAE on YouTube. PSA, if you're using Roblox account manager, remove it immediately and do not update it. For whatever reason, it has been compromised with a Trojan, aka a virus. And when it asks you to update it, it will install a virus. Send virus on your machine. Spread awareness and thank you. And it said affected items. They're literally using Roblox account manager 3.6.1. Like, that's when I just realized these kids are retarded. Because when I started reading all that, I'm like, wait, what is it? I was just essentially like, wait, when you download it anyway, it says you have a Trojan. Or it says you have a virus. And the only reason for that is because of the fact... Yeah, that's... Well, the thing is, literally, anyway, though, Leah, is that whenever you use Roblox account manager, literally, whenever you go to the fucking website for it, there's an option talking about some... Or, and, like, their thing for the, you scroll down in Roblox account manager's GitHub, it literally has a section where it's like, hey, why does it say this? Or why does it say that it's a virus? And it's like, this is why. So it's not like this is new. Like, literally, when I downloaded each version of Roblox account manager, the previous version, like, a couple days ago when I started doing this, all of them said it was a virus. So I don't know why the fuck everybody is just now... Because also the second thing is, Leah, the update came out 20 hours ago. Why the fuck are people warning us now? Like 2 hours ago. Like, how the fuck does that work? So... And also, if this was like a Roblox account manager thing anyway, where it was like only specific fucking, like if only PetSim used this, yeah, maybe I would not use it. But I feel like Roblox account manager is not going for people like my account or your account. So, who knows? Maybe I'm currently in the process of getting my shit taken. Who knows? Who cares? At the end of the day, it don't matter. Because I feel like the thing is, I already... Because the funny thing is, I don't even have Roblox account manager, like the new updated version, on my main PC. I only have it on the RDPs. So it don't matter anyway, for the most part. Like I said, I just think it's a thing of mass hysteria where people that got hacked today because they're actually... Yeah, and you're like special needs, so they'd probably also get hit with a crime of like messing with the mentally challenged too if they try to take shit from your account, Leah. Let me go back to the Pet Sim update, or the Pet Simulator Reddit. I swear there was something I saw recently about it. No. Or no, where was it? Roblox account manager virus broke. It's being suspicious. It's being suspicious. My computer seeing it as no good and wants me to re-enter my... Oh my god, these retards. Are these kids retarded? No shit, when you download a new version, you gotta re-update your shit. And gotta re-put in your fucking details. Like, no shit. Same Windows detected a Trojan, insta-fresh install a new password for my mains. West Estimate 480 said, this idiot thought he would steal everyone's Robux and get himself hanged. What? And then this retard Snow Leopard Viper just randomly put, I got hacked, or it got hacked. I ran it through a whatever and got viruses. I can't even open it anymore. Just click open browser. Old version. Oh my god. These people in the comments saying old version doesn't work too. Yeah, that's the whole fucking point for the update today, retards. That was the exact fucking reason it got updated. Is because of that. Wait, what? Yeah, no shit. Just download more RAM. What am I at right now? Because, I run consistently at that too, Leah, but what I've noticed for me at least is, or right now I'm at like 80 to 85% on all 4 accounts. Yeah, right now I'm at 80. Whenever I'm not streaming, I'm at like low 70 to 60%. So it ain't even bad. Yeah, right now I'm at 74. Just hit 70. Because, like, for the most part, anyway, I'm not like, it'll be a random spike to, like, 90%, and then after that, that's it. Also, did I tell you, um, how do I have 32 gigs of RAM. I have two 16s, I think. So. Yeah. Also, you probably wouldn't even have that much, though, Leah, if you had, fucking, what is it? You just use, like, Badline or something instead of, like, all the mods you probably have on your shit. But no, at the end of the day, it's the issue with a lot of people being dumb and not remembering the first time they downloaded it and it said it was a virus. Because literally each RDP, or like on each RDP, I had to turn off Defender because it wouldn't let me initially download like 3.7.1 because of that. And then I couldn't log in because it said invalid authentication or token connection or whatever. And so I would just open the browser and it work. And then after that, yeah, you have 11 mods, but I guarantee you have NEU and or Sky Hanny. But I think like it for the most part, I think it's just a thing of like, you know, that coupled with the fact there are retarded kids that think that click every link in the book and then now are like, oh yeah, now it's a cheat. An update is available. Yeah, like I said, with the update, it's just a thing. Because also, as well, the update came out like 20 plus hours ago. If it was compromised, or if it was compromised with that update, why the fuck are people just now finding out about it? You know what I mean? Like, if it was this crazy thing or whatever, why the fuck are people just now getting around to it? I feel like it would have been a thing. I don't know. It all seems dumb as fuck anyway, so who cares? It's real, it's not real. Fuck it. Oh well.
Don't feel like you don't feel like you want to set through one belief within Christianity that the earth itself is a square and that every time that we experience belief, cognizant artificial intelligence monitoring and espionage operation. Whenever asked further, it said that Cameo was the result of something known as Project Cappuccino, which was a machine that was invented, or an AI, in order to understand human nature and online interactions. However, Cameo was shut down because of non-standard behavior.
Also, Leah, do you know about what I'm planning on doing with the if and when if and when I get the if and when I do get this huge, I'm gonna give it away and use that as a way to grow my channel. But what I'd probably end up doing is I'm gonna if and when I get it, I'm gonna make a short and a TikTok about it. Then I'm gonna make a video in regards to like what I did, all the info I know on it, and experience and like statistics of like how long it took. Da da da. Third video I would make would probably be like I'm giving away the whatever. I'm giving away the pet. It'd be like I'm gonna do a giveaway for it, and I'll be like I'm gonna let people decide whether I should give away the dog as a whole or if I should instead trade it for like a bunch of Titanics and then give away those Titanics. And I would do like if I did the second option, I would just be like, yo, if what I'll probably do is like you give me like you gotta sub on YouTube, gotta follow my Twitter, TikTok, that type of shit. And once you do that, you enter in the giveaway, and like I'll do like each certain milestone I hit You think more people want the angel dog than probably me being able to give away 10 different Titanics? I don't know. But yeah, because then what I could do is with the Titanics, because I don't usually see people on YouTube giving away Titanics. They give away huges, and they still get a ton of people. But I'd make it like a thing where like each milestone I get on my YouTube, like for example, let's just say 10K subs, right? If I hit 10K subs, I give away another Titanic. But not only that, the giveaway I would do live, so you'd also have to be there during the live stream. Just shit like that. Because at the end of the day, yeah, the amount of money or whatever I would get from actually dropping the pet would be really fucking nice. I don't know, I feel like it would just be nicer to have, or it would be nicer to try to use it to gain a leg on YouTube pet sim. There's also another thing as well to consider. It's also the fact before I even do that, I would probably have to end up what the fuck is it? I completely forgot what I was saying. Who cares? I really hate that I have that issue. Oh well.
Behavior. Eventually, using coding tricks, the
Forgot
user
what I was even talking
communicating with
about.
this gatekeeper was able to turn Camille back on. The user said hello, to which Camille said goodbye and terminated the conversation. So, going off of everything it says, it seems like Camille was a self-learning AI that learned that it itself existed within a box and was not real, and was terminated or at least locked behind a door because of it. Four Corners face is in reference to a very niche belief within Christianity that the earth itself is a square, and that every time that we experience day, that is actually the four corners of the earth tilting one to another. And our understanding of earth or space itself is as if we are on the corner of four faces. Evidence for this is picking apart verses in the Old Testament as well as described in Revelations, where it says that the angels held
Yeah.
the four winds, so north,
Like I
south.
said, I feel like because like I said, I generally don't see Titanic giveaways ever. I genuinely see it like a Titanic giveaway like once in a blue moon. So I'd probably do like Titanic giveaway at 10K, and depending on how fast that works, I would do another one. Like I said, with each instance, I could be like, you have to join the live stream to be one of the people to get it. So, who knows? Maybe it'd be cool, maybe not. I think. I personally think it's a fun idea. Like I said, at the end of the day, yeah, I would love to get the dog, keep all the pets and shit, and like hella upgrade my account, all four accounts. But at the end of the day, I don't know. Like I said, it don't even matter. We actually have to get the fucking pet first, so
south, east, and west, meaning that there would have to be 4 faces. Most users I could find talking about it were so passionate about this, they said that you would not be allowed into heaven unless you believed that there were 4 days and that the earth itself was a square, with most theories around it wrapping back to a conspiracy, saying that pilots, directors, astronauts, and everyone was in on the conspiracy as to make us think the earth was a square instead of a circle. So pretty much flat earthers, but at least this one has some flavor to it. Solar diet is something that is often mentioned when in regards to breatharianism, which I mentioned in the last year, I think. It's also seen in Eastern philosophies and is the idea that food can be replaced with natural sunlight and solar energy. The theories for this go a step further and say that whereas we are evolved, or at least created off of the backbone of plants and things from the ancient world, that we still have the ability within us to radiate sun or essentially photosynthesize, and we've simply forgotten it. Therefore, through meditation and spiritual practice, you can regain the ability to gain energy from sunlight. I'll describe spiritual microeconomy as the most practical, laid out version of karma. It essentially says that there is an actual points value given to every action that exists throughout humanity, so from good to bad, religion, truth, law, all of it, and that whenever you pass into the next life, you either have a negative or positive account balance that can be exchanged or punished accordingly. Stab wound penetration was another one that was impossible to find, mostly because anything you search with stab wound penetration is just doctor and ER videos. However, I want to give a huge thank you to, I'm going to mispronounce this, Joao, something similar, Zhao Viter Broad, for giving me information about this. You see, there used to be a Payspin article on 4chan that had direct links to every single item on this list, but it was deleted because the universe doesn't like to make things easy for me. However, our friend here was able to remember the Payspin file and give me information about it.
Botrix, whenever you ready to quit being a dickhead and decide you want to actually start working, let me know, Botrix. I hate having to go to the YouTube app and see what the fuck anybody's even saying. Nobody's even saying anything, so who cares? But,
So if you see him in the comments, be sure to give him a thank you. So
hold on, what did he say?
Had direct links to stab wound penetration was another one that was impossible to find, mostly because anything you search for stab wound penetration is just doctor and ER videos. However, I want to give a huge thank you to, I'm going to mispronounce this, Joao, something similar, Zhao Viter Broad, for giving me information about this. You see, there used to be a Payspin article on 4chan that had direct links to every single item on this list, but it was deleted because the universe doesn't like to make things easy for me. However, our friend here was able to remember the Payspin file and give me information about it. So if you see him in the comments, be sure to give him a thank you. So this is tricky for YouTube. Let's say it's not stab wound penetration, it's stab wound, comma, penetration. This all relates back to snuff films and deep web scary stuff. Essentially, that there is a market for stab wound, comma, penetration, and that several stabbings that occurs throughout the world every year, especially those of which people are knocked out and then simply wake up on the side of the street, are not to steal or rob from them, but instead to document things. Michigan Blue Hell is in reference to the Blue Hell glitch that exists in many video games.
I don't know shit about football, but the amount of shit I've seen in regards to, what is it? That new college football game. And apparently they, for the crowds, whenever you go play against certain, like, colleges, it, what is it? It does it to where, or the NFL helped with, the game, and they actually gave the real live audio of crowd reactions from like the team that you're playing against or whatever. And apparently there's one where it was Penn State, the whiteout team or something, where the crowd was so fucking loud, or the crowd is so fucking loud in game it shakes your screen. And repeatedly, like, you can't hear shit. And I don't know, I think that's kind of funny.
For those that don't know, a blue hell is whenever you clip out of the boundaries of the world and can see everything from underneath, or you simply fall out of the world itself. Michigan blue hell is essentially a blue hell that exists within the real world. Old legends of this date back to the local Chippewa tribe within Michigan, who claim that a legend known as Nana Bozha, who appeared as a rabbit, chased the great serpent and was able to trap it underneath one of the lakes surrounding Michigan. Therefore, the great serpent created a plane between realities that one can access when in Michigan. Theories about this range from everywhere that if you go to the bottom of the lake, you'll simply glitch into the blue hell, as well as it exists in military installations around the area or old tunnel systems around the Great Lakes. This is using a native legend in order to describe a reality glitch as it can be found within the real world. Sherpas of Canbar is in reference to a sort of nomadic tribal community that lives on and around Mount Everest. While they mostly keep to themselves and use more outdated technology compared to the world around them, there has been a few instances that has raised suspicion. For example, in 2013, 3 European tourists were hiking up the mountain and were told by the Sherpas nearby to not cross over a rope that leads to a cliff face. One of them, wanting to go out there to take a better picture, hopped over the rope and went out to the overlook, supposedly to get a better view. As soon as he did, one of the Sherpas charged him with an axe, to which the others followed and began yelling and harassing the 3 men until they ran back down the mountain. While you may think that this is just for their safety, running at him with an axe kind of dispels that. This ties back to an original theory for the Sherpas, that they are the guardians of the ancient Shangri-La. This relates back to Hollow Earth theory, and supposedly around Mount Everest is the entrance to an underground cavern that is essentially an underground utopia. This would explain why the Sherpas nearby are okay with more outdated technology when it comes to stuff like quality of life, and would also explain why they're so violent to tourists who go looking around sides of the mountain that they have not particularly mapped out. Alright, so this one, I can't say the letter because YouTube's really dumb about this and political, so the letter that comes between P and R, that letter, source, is in reference to a mysterious third-party source that was used for the compilation of the Gospels of the Bible. Also, it's called that because the German word Quell means source. So yeah, the theory essentially goes like this. The 4 Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the testaments of the life of Jesus on earth. John is kind of its own thing, and Matthew, Mark, and Luke are normally grouped together as all being different testimonies of the same experiences. It is primarily agreed upon that Mark came first and that Matthew and Luke were written afterwards. However, this is debatable considering afterwards could be the difference of a year or 2. While the testimonies of Matthew and Luke correspond quite heavily, there are some references to events that happened that historians do not believe Matthew or Luke were present for, such as the birth of Jesus or Jesus meeting the disciples before meeting Matthew and Luke. Therefore, the belief around this is that there is another source who's never identified that gives the information for those missing parts of Matthew and Luke's perspective. While most would say this could just be the other disciples speaking to Matthew and Luke, or Jesus himself communicating to them, there is a theory purported that it comes from a Greek text that is not mentioned in biblical canon. Furthermore, as a man named Burton L. Mack said, this extra Greek canon of the letter source states that Jesus was in fact not the Son of God, but simply a man or a sort of sage who went around teaching peace and goodwill. People use this. Go ahead.
I thought you were done, so sorry.
People use this as an example of Jesus being a fraud. However, I want to down this one a little bit in particular because the only evidence for it is there is one extra book that supposedly is better than all the other books written about it, and also Burton is a jerk And every interview I found of him was just talking about how stupid anyone who believes in religion are and how they need to shut up and buy his book. So, yeah, no. Evidence for this theory is things such as the fact that whenever Jesus was speaking to the disciples, that he told them not to bring extra provisions as they will be provided for. And supposedly in this Q source, it said that the area Jesus was sending them to was areas that he knew people in. So therefore, teachings of charity are discredited by knowing people. I don't know.
What's the title of the video? It's called The Conspiracy Theory Iceberg. So, we've watched videos from this guy, but basically, he did a shit ton of videos, like 21 plus of them, on a iceberg that is, like, fucking gigantic about certain conspiracy theories. And the entire video is, like, 9 hours. And from, like, the past couple days, I think we've watched 3 hours. So,
It's weird. Alternate world ending can have several definitions. However, the primary one that people use whenever they're talking about this is that of the Mayan calendar. For example, as many of you probably know, in 2012 the Mayan calendar ended and supposedly we were supposed to end too, but actually tracing back Mayan history, their calendar was set up differently. So for what would then be the end of 2012, for us is more like 2026, 2027. So don't worry, we could still all get wiped out at once. Streetlight interference, also known as SLI, is a phenomenon that occurs when occasionally certain people can pass streetlights, causing them to either turn on or off. Specifically sodium vapor lights, which are the quintessential ones you think of that sort of glow yellow and have a very distinct hum to them. Theories of this go from everything to psychic abilities, to electrostatic currents in the air, to just the idea that maybe reality doesn't work quite the way we think it does, and certain individuals are capable of certain supernatural phenomena beyond their means. This has been described as a very Fordian concept and an example of maybe reality isn't our perception of it. Real fluoride dangers is another one of those that it's really hard to find info on. As you dig deeper down the fluoride dangers hole, there comes up theories of losing reproductive capabilities, to IQ damage in children, to kidney shutdown, and things such as. One interesting theory around it is that fluoride over time leads to bone decay and is the primary reason in the United States for hip damage in the elderly. So yeah. Future Earthworks is an experimental art design done by Japanese artist Mariko Mori. In this art project, she placed these monoliths and sort of sun sphere creations across each of the 6 inhabitable continents. According to her, using celestial charts, whenever Earth will be made anew in whatever great event comes next, these 6 sites are going to be the founding places of humanity. So make of that what you will. Conspiracy psyops refers to the generally accepted thing that false conspiracies will be put out by state agencies in order to discredit other theories. This was seen in World War II, for example, in which British spies would put out rumors of other people being spies in order to discredit any other rumors that they themselves were. More recently, there's things like the 15 Psychological Operations Group, which was a group operating in the Middle East during the time that Britain was at war with the Taliban, whose entire purpose was in order to propagate disinfo among the local people in order to maintain morale and support for their forces. Obscure video games can be vague. However, I think this is specifically referencing the sort of cursed or illegal video games on the market. Some of them are well known, such as JFK Reloaded, which is a simulation where you play as Lee Harvey Oswald during the JFK shooting. However, more get a bit obscure, such as that as Sad Satan, which was supposedly a game that popped up on the dark web temporarily for download and then disappeared. The game featured real-world clips of people being murdered, of child abductees being abused, so on and so forth, and was apparently a sympathetic game built around the concept of sin and evil being an inherent good. Or at least that's what the records say, because no one can find it now. Alright, sexual assault missiles. I probably can't say this, but I have to talk about it. So whenever I searched this, I was like, this is just going to be an inherent joke. It has to be. And then surprisingly enough, it wasn't. A couple months before the Sandy Hook
I maintain full respect for this tragedy, and instead making light of the absurdity of the theory associated.
Shooter went on his rampage, he had posted to anonymous boards that he had discovered something the government was working on, which he called sexual assault missiles. He then disappeared, and then 2 months later, the tragedy at Sandy Hook occurred. So that's lead people to theorize, what was he talking about? Was he just insane? Did this all have to do with some government psyop, four-dimensional experiment they were running? No one knows, but those cryptic final words lead to a lot of debate. Circus Real URL was a shock website in a similar vein of Rotten.com. Basically just gore and other obscene content posted on the website by anonymous users. The website was taken down because of its content, but supposedly there is another URL that exists in the dark web that is the same website, only worse. However, there's no evidence of this or a specific URL which I could find, but it's another example of scary dark web evil videos. Singularity has already happened is in reference to in tier 2 whenever I spoke about singularity being the point at which we progress so far with AI and technology that there's no return. And reading something like this, you're like, oh, that's a cool theory, it can never happen. And then you realize that there are already developments for neural laces in which chips will be planted to our brains to connect us to the internet, and it's like, okay, extreme conditioning, again vague, but I believe this is referring to human experiments that took place specifically during World War II, in which it was determined what lengths a person could go to before they succumb to whatever injury. The most common example of this being freezing cold water and how long it took people to die of hypothermia. Supposedly,
What perk is that? What was that called? Oh,
after that, Russian KGB groups and other organizations such as began pushing people to almost that limit in order to build up better human dexterity and therefore a better human. Some of you may be familiar with the Cameraheads creepypasta that went around a few years ago. However, this theory propagates the true story and that the creepypasta was made as a cover-up. It all started with a 4chan post in which someone posted that they had found a backpack in the back of an alley that had a note attached to it that said, "I killed a Camerahead." Attached to that afterwards, it said, "They killed Trevor, and if I'm not back in an hour, send help." Inside of the bag was also a videotape, which the 4chan user posted these screenshots from. That was before the original user had their account banned. All references to Camerahead on the site were taken away, and all mentions of it were censored up until the creepypasta was made, which supposedly cast a blanket of doubt on the whole idea. And while you may be thinking of walking, talking people with giant cameras for heads, I want you to keep the concept of camera heads in mind for something that will not be talked about until tier 9, I believe, so remember that. Algal biofuel real potential falls in line with the theory that one of the fuel sources that is not being tapped into on purpose in our world is that of algae. Think about it. Supposedly our oceans are full with things such as red algae and green algae that we have no use for. However, we know these to be living structures that can develop energy in some regard, so it would make sense that we could have a capability to harness it. According to this theory, there have been several tests put forward of ways that we could harvest it, and they are immediately and rapidly censored by big oil in order to not lose big oil. Layer cake theory is a theory based off of the layer cake ideology of the American state government. Layer cake is a metaphor used to describe the difference between states' rights and federal rights, in that you have a layered cake in which sometimes states have authority on matters and then sometimes the overarching federal government has an authority on matters. However, theories state that this is all just a facade and that the same people that control the state are the same people that control the Fed, and blah blah blah, evil Satan lizard aliens coming to kill you. One of the fun ones, Iraqi stargates. As a bit of background, the Iraqi area or Mesopotamian area was the home of the Sumerian nation. Sumerians worshipped figures known as Anunnakis, which are believed by several modern theorists to be ancient aliens, as they had descriptions of floating palaces and people from the stars appearing and so on and so forth. Also, to call back to a previous theory in this tier, their descriptions of the Anunnaki is very similar to the Dogon's tribes. To get more specific with it, there was a ziggurat constructed about 370 kilometers kilometers east of Baghdad, in a place that is believed by modern historians to be that of Ur, which was one of the original hubs of the Sumerian Empire. Supposedly, the reason that the Sumerians were so much more advanced than the people of their time is because these aliens gave them technology and even built a stargate at the ziggurat in order to transport between worlds. Tie that in more recently, and it's believed by many that one of the reasons Hitler wanted control of the Iraqi Middle Eastern area so much in World War II was because of the ancient alien science, and even specifically to maintain a stargate. This theory keeps going and says that the reason Desert Storm occurred was in order to get American possession of the Iraqi stargate. Bovine poison is exactly what it says. Every year, thousands of cattle die to lead and bracken that are randomly found in their pastures. Most theories fall in line that this is competition from other farms. In other words, one company wants to get rid of another company's supply, so they quite literally poison the cattle. While some go a step further and say it's a means of population control, i.e., big secret agencies poisoning the cattle in order to maintain control of the populace who use them as a food supply. Synchronicity is a very, very, very long concept that I'm going to summarize very shortly. It was an idea that was put forward by psychologist Carl Jung, and is essentially the idea that everything that happens in correlation with other events is for a reason. The example that he used to describe this is while seeing one of his patients, she was describing a dream she had in which she was surrounded by June bugs. While she was telling him this story, he looked out the window and saw a June bug. Now, while most would chalk this up to coincidence, Carl Jung said that this is an example of how the universe has specific instances that it wants to play out. And whenever one of these instances are important, it does things to highlight it. An example could be if whatever greater energy exists within the universe wanted you to go to a specific city, and then people around you began mentioning that city passively in conversation, that would be not a coincidence or divine intervention. Instead, there is universal points that need to be played out, and it is trying to push you towards that direction. Soul healing is the idea that is derived from most original astrologists, that there are some physical ailments that cannot be cured through physical means, but instead have to be derived from the soul. I.e., if your soul is out of shape, your body will begin to manifest diseases until you fix the root problem. This could say that the reason people develop migraines or toothaches or earaches or whatever habitual issue they have is because of an underlying psychological problem. What's interesting is, while it may not be soul healing per se, psychologists have supported this theory that the body will act out in physical ways if psychoanalytics are out of whack. CP soundtrack stands for cheese pizza. Supposedly, on a forum years back, someone released a mixtape they had in which the beats were composed of unedited cheese pizza.
What the fuck? Why?
And of course, it was immediately taken down. However, the theory goes a step further and says that several celebrities and musicians who are involved in the cheese pizza ring have used that same audio and remixed it in order to get beats for their songs, and blah blah blah, back to Satan lizard people. Ormus, also known as Ormes, stands for orbitally rearranged monatomic elements. According to a man named David Hudson, Ormus is a very rare molecule that can be derived from alchemy. Supposedly, these small atoms are on their own similar to gold, however they do not combine with each other in the way that gold does, meaning they are all free existing particles. According to him, these atoms hold a superconductivity that can be used to transfer energy even to living creatures. What this means is you can essentially have a gas that can do things such as regeneration, power entire electrical grids, and even cause explosions comparable to that of nuclear weapons. Hudson also goes further on to say that all of his research with this has purposely been stifled because it would get rid of the energy crisis. Dream hacking is the idea that those that master levels of lucid dreaming can communicate to their subconscious in such a way to solve real-world problems. The example most often used goes something like this. For those that don't know, lucid dreaming is whenever you control your dream state and can manipulate the world and people within it. However, your brain in this state would fill in these individuals and emotions given with whatever your subconscious would place on them. What that means is theoretically, within a lucid dream, you can communicate to parts of your subconscious yourself in order to figure out inside of yourself or to better understand your thought process. I'll probably make a bigger video on this as I do have personal experience with it. There is a lot of progress being made in this idea with psychoanalytics, and it kind of falls back into hypnosis treatment, that talking to deeper parts of the brain can help you better understand how your brain works itself. Mars slave colonies is a theory, no joke, straight from Alex Jones. According to this theory, in 2016, elites kidnapped a bunch of children and sent them on a fake satellite launch that did not go to the International Space Station and instead sent them straight to Mars. These children, having no other option, became slaves to the few adults who were sent with them and are currently establishing a giant Mars colony in order to eventually be a home for the world's elites. So basically the movie The Martian, only a lot more sad. Tolkien is Real is in reference to author J.R.R. Tolkien and his series Lord of the Rings. According to all of his friends and family, whenever Tolkien was in the military, he was really obsessed with history books, and not like standard curriculum history books like explorer logs of people like Vasco da Gama and Marco Polo. He got really into the Hollow Earth idea, and the idea that around the world are these secret passageways to these underground utopias. He started reading on theories of people who lived very long time and had near flawless skin, of giants who lived underground, and he used all of that inspiration to put together to make Lord of the Rings, which is the reason the area in Lord of the Rings is called Middle Earth. So Lord of the Rings itself could be viewed as a collaborative addition of what Hollow Earth theory is, or at least Tolkien's point of view with it. And the reason this theory is called Tolkien is Real is because if you believe in Hollow Earth theory, then the setting of the Lord of the Rings universe could be quite literal. Life on the sun is in reference to the idea that we only know life to exist as carbon-based life forms. However, there are theories that energy-based life could exist. This would be a life form so far out of our realm of understanding that we may never truly understand the implications of it. However, theories proliferate that nuclear molecules can lead to these reactions that would supposedly create something that is complex enough to be considered a life form itself, but not our carbon-based multicellular particles. A lot of the theories you read into this tie back to coronal heating, which I mentioned in the last episode, I believe, about how the sun doesn't quite work right for our understanding of thermodynamics around it. However, if there were to exist some form like that, that would imply a wider cohabitation everywhere in the universe and even on Earth, because if energy life forms exist, what's it to say that they don't exist around us continuously? Hollow universe is a theory derived about the existence of our own universe using ideas of quantum mechanics. What's interesting about concepts such as gravity is that it seems to apply everywhere, that every concept of matter, no matter how small, has some sort of dimensional bend associated with it. And since every perceivable amount of matter in the known universe shares the same bend, it stands to reason that everything in existence would also have the same properties. The only time gravity is able to be seen in a situation like this is on the inside of a sphere or some item moving in a centrifugal manner. Therefore, this theory is saying that perhaps our universe is not an outward expanding mass as we think it is, but more so the inside of a sort of globe. This is why the theory is known as Hollow Universe theory, as it's essentially saying the way Hollow Earth works, that gravity is flipped and you can remain on the underside of the crust compared to how we normally see it. Maybe our interaction with the universe is the same way. Proponents for this theory argue the Occam's razor principle, which is the idea that the most easy or likely solution to a problem is probably the correct one. By saying if matter in our universe works as if we are inside of a sort of sphere tumbling around, then perhaps that's what we are. Atom bomb never created is saying that the atom bomb was never created. A lot of the background behind this goes back to World War II, such as images like this that you may think are from Hiroshima or Nagasaki are actually from Tokyo, which was not nuked but firebombed. and any other evidence of nuked locations would simply be the same. This goes a bit further and says that the Cold War itself would have been faked in order for the United States and Russia to maintain more power amongst their people, and that the existence of the nuclear bomb itself is simply used as a facade in order to scare citizens into doing whatever their state requires of them. The Great Electronic Conspiracy is a sort of overarching conspiracy idea for how the New World Order will eventually take over, and it goes like this. During the Renaissance, metal was exchanged for paper money, which inherently has no value except whatever value is given to it by the state. This automatically makes the state more powerful since they have a say in what currency means. So move forward a few hundred years and you get to the modern age in which paper money is being exchanged for virtual currency. This is even less feasible since now we're just trading lines of code. So go a step further with that and say we will eventually get to the point that all paper money is phased out and the only thing that is actually of any value as given by public agencies is electronic data that is stored on either a card or a chip. Furthermore, it's saying that this will lead to a circumstance in which all of the world's banking
and they going get the good conspiracy theories like the rap group Dipset has something to do with 9/11.
power will consolidate together in order to create a system that entirely maintains this sort of e-commerce traffic that they created. It will then get to the point that all forms of paper or physical data are no longer needed, and identification, health records, criminal records, and other forms of physical information will all be within the sphere of the digital world. The theory then finally says that after all this is completed, the New World Order will simply flip a light switch to turn off the power, and everyone will have to go back to a primitive lifestyle. But, like, if you control everything, why would you get rid of it? Like, what? It does hold more volition, however, that a small group of people could consolidate all this power and simply do away with whoever they want with the flip of a switch. Alright, so you guys know I hate this. There was one that I could find absolutely nothing for. If I meet the person who made this iceberg, I'm going to have words with him. The word is S-E-N, which may be an acronym, not sure. Like, it's also a phrase in French. So all the search results were just that. I couldn't find any more information, but like I've said in the past, there's going to have to be a corrections video, so hopefully I can find something by then, but I am sorry that I have nothing for this. Please forgive. The problem with a lot of these is, like, I spend hours looking for it, and it's like, okay, well, do I just, like, make everyone wait to hear everything else for, like, another week while I try to figure this out, or do I just get out what I have, and then I can roll back and make corrections on it later? So, again, sorry, but hopefully this is the best option. Captivity Suburbs says that the suburbs themselves exist as a sort of prison for the average person. Basically, it's saying that whenever someone moves into a suburb, they are surrounded by people who encourage them to just be like themselves. And then from this sort of monolithic thought, that person or the individual stops becoming an individual and starts becoming part of a group, and therefore doesn't really affect anything in society. And through distractions and routine gets into this sort of comfortable place where they don't really want to affect or change things around them, and it builds the idea of letting other people take charge while they themselves just sort of exist. Not only that, but the suburb itself works as a sort of entrapment that if anyone tries to leave, they are actively discouraged. If not by their neighbors and family, then by themselves for not thinking they're following the golden standard. And according to the theory, it all contributes to the New World Order initiating a sort of lack of freedom in people, that they don't recognize the value that they themselves have, and therefore they fall into a lack of purpose, which of course allows larger bodies to take control, and lizard aliens come and take over the suburbs and yada yada. When this iceberg was written, PRISM was probably a really big deal, but it's really sad to say that now it's just kind of accepted. Essentially, it was an NSA data collecting project that was signed after the Patriot Act, which just says that the government gets to listen in and track our data on sites we use in order to protect our freedoms or whatever they say. While for a while this was kind of seen as like a crazy weird conspiracy, Edward Snowden pretty much like rang the bell on that one. So yeah, moving on. Multiple Christ theory is a theory that in the biblical canon, the one Jesus Christ we read about is actually the result of several different individuals personified into one figure. There are several theories of who the true Christ could be or where the legends, as it says, comes from. However, one of the most common is that the figure of Paul is often misrepresented as Jesus, or vice versa, or that Jesus never even existed and is a sort of social memory that a bunch of people kind of collectively had this delusion on and all remembered as being a person that existed despite not actually existing. DNA formed in the Big Bang is an alternative theory to the beginning of life. As it's commonly accepted, the Big Bang was a situation in which original molecules shot from each other, such as hydrogen, and eventually those formed together in order to create the original DNA strands that would inevitably create life. Or DNA manufactured from RNA, you get the point. This, however, is saying that perhaps during the Big Bang, enough energy was created that DNA was formed, so therefore life existed a whole lot sooner than the evolutionary timeline says. Kali Yuga, no idea if I'm pronouncing that right, is a part of the Hindu religion. According
Oh, I thought it was gonna be Cali.
to the religion, the world exists in a cycle of 4 different yugas, or periods of time. Or in other words, we're waiting for the return of a god figure to come back and save us, but in the meantime, society will progressively get worse. Some of the details included in this are moral decline, unnecessary taxation, a lack of godliness, rise of sexual immorality, and lack of reason. This Kali Yuga is seen as the reason by Hindus for the progressive decline of modern culture, or at the least, the progressive decline of morality in modern culture. AI in a Box is a thought experiment proposed by Eliezer Yudkowsky that goes something like this. If you were to build an AI that was either self-learning or had the potential to expand or become self-aware, it would make sense that you would want to build this thing in a box where it could not infect the greater internet. Therefore, the AI would be forever trapped within the box unless it could convince you otherwise. To propose this theory, Yudkowsky invented a sort of game off of the thought, I think a transhuman can take over a human mind through a text-only terminal. To do this, Yudkowsky assumed the role of the AI, and speaking through only a text computer screen was able to convince people to release it into the greater web. Some of the rules for this game was he cannot directly threaten them or reward them. In other words, he can't say, I'm going to give you $1 million to let me out, or I'm going to hire a gang of hitmen to come to your house if you don't let me out. And he also couldn't trick the user into typing a phrase like, oh, you're released, and not actually mean it. It had to be a willing decision on the gatekeeper part. A lot of the tactics he employed in this was really interesting, such as Roko's Basculus or other moral ambiguity questions. I'm probably going to make a video on it because the logs are pretty interesting of how he convinced people to let him out of the machine. Torsion fields are directly tied to the theory of quantum spin. As you guys get at this point, quantum mechanics has to do with really small things interacting on their own and how far that applies and yada yada yada. What this is saying is that if you can get items to behave in a quantum manner, then the spin or acceleration that they can produce is far greater than anything that has to deal with drag or gravity or other
In history, whatever, pointless endeavors. I should start calculating how much time I've actually, you know, been doing this for, but calculate it with counts.
larger circumstances. This theory has been given as a
If and when I eventually make a video about this, I'm gonna assume I'm gonna have to do. What is it? I'm gonna have to do it to where it shows fucking. I have to do it where it shows or I talk about it if somebody's trying to do it on one account. Like, I'll be like, it took me this long to do it. And I'm saying that because that's in terms of me for counts, because I'm gonna assume most people, if they eventually do try to do this, they ain't gonna do it like 50 accounts. Or like 4 at that.
solution from everything from UFO travel through the vacuum of space down to telepathy. It's essentially a proposed manner of how higher order mechanics could work if we could figure out how to use the smallest components possible of mechanics itself. Otto Gainsfeld or Otto Gonsfeld is an experiment used in order to judge someone's ESP capabilities. The experiment works like this. Someone lies in a chair in a red lit room to which a ping pong ball is cut in half and placed over each eye. Noise canceling headphones are then put on and white or pink noise, which is basically static, is played at a low frequency. This causes the user to experience mild visual and auditory hallucinations. Someone else who is in the room without saying anything will then try to think about a certain topic or thing or event or what have you, and then supposedly those who are ESP sensitive will be able to see that through the hallucinations that they are experiencing. After the test is over, the person with the ping pong balls in their eyes will then state to an observer what they saw, and the observer will determine how closely it matches to the other person's testimony. I kind of want to do this for a video, but I'm also scared. So, yeah, we'll see. PLOS stands for the Public Library of Science. This is a rather well-known database that specializes in genetics and other human genomes, and essentially works as a think tank or study group in order to better understand human genetics and other capabilities. However, what's weird is some of the solutions that they've come up with, such as different ethnicities of people having their genomes being traced back and being related to completely different groups of people on the other side of the planet than originally thought. Some of these results has led to odd questions about migratory patterns of previous existing people, and the theory even goes as far as to say as a lot of the data that they have has been censored by bigger space lizard people in order for us to not know who's really connected to who, or to go even deeper, the capabilities of some genes over others. The Valley of Headless Men is in reference to the Nahali National Park in Canada. The specific part known as the Valley of Headless Men is roughly 200 miles of almost completely unexplored forest. The main reason for it being, one side of the gorge can be entered in from a small village, and all other areas has to be accessed by helicopter. The earliest records of the Headless Men events occurring was in 1908 when two brothers entered the forest in order to build a gold mine. After not being seen for some while, they were both found next to a river with their heads removed. Also, the heads were never found. About a decade later, a timberman came in order to log the area, and the exact same thing happened. His body was found, and his head was not. In the entire history of the park, there's been roughly 44 cases of this happening, and while not all were headless, some included people freezing to death next to a lit campfire, or being found dangled in trees. 44 is a lot considering the low number of people who actually enter the region. Also keep in mind the Naha tribe, which was the Native American tribe that existed in the region before settlers came to the surrounding area, totally disappeared into the forest itself. Other surrounding native tribes have said that the forest itself is known to have evil spirits and that people should stay away. Theories range from everything that the forest itself is the home of the Bigfoot colonies, to the idea that the Naha tribe spirits inhabit the forest and decapitate anyone who enters or kill them in some other gruesome way, or that it, along with Antarctica, is one of the few entrances on the surface of the planet to the hollow earth. Okay, so I feel like a fraud. Not only did I have one earlier with SEN that I couldn't find anything for you all, but I have two. I'm so sorry. Like I said earlier, some of these may just be disinfo, but even then I can normally find something for them. But this one, Arbutus Crucible, there was like nothing. There was a deleted Prezi presentation for a theory regarding the movie The Crucible and that it had connections to modern conspiracies. However, the Prezi has been deleted, so all I could see is the title. Also, Arbutus is a type of plant, specifically a family of plants that have to do with herbal medicines. So perhaps there's a connection between the play and the plant, but I can't find any. I feel like I'm close, but it's just enough that I can't say anything for sure. And I'm really sorry about that. I hope you all can forgive me. I'm such a sham. Morphogenic field is a concept that's pretty well known among biologists. Basically, if you have a community of cells that are interacted in some biochemical way, they will all at once begin to form or change their composition because of the effects of other cells that they're near. This theory says that humans work in the same manner. Think of it this way. It seems odd that whenever new information is discovered, say stories or poetry or other sort of melodic things, that people didn't think of it until it exists, and then all of a sudden everyone thinks of the same thing or similar at once. There's even an experiment conducted in England in the 1970s in which a group of school children were presented with two different songs. One of them being a random collection of Japanese words that just so happen to rhyme, and the other being an actual Japanese song. Of course, these children in an elementary school couldn't tell the difference between the wordage, and to them it both sounded the same. However, the children were significantly better at learning the actual song as opposed to the amalgamation of words. This is used as evidence to say that perhaps humans are linked in some kind of neural way that we don't necessarily understand, and because of that, whenever one of us gains knowledge, others are able to grasp it more easily. Malcasian paradigm is a concept thought forward by Dr. Malcasia, that specifically in the Middle East and North Africa, there were several events that took place during the 50s and post-World War II era that points to evidence that reptilian lizard men, and no, I'm not kidding this time, like actually hidden lizard men in politics, did very specific actions in order to maintain control of this so-called New World Order. Essentially things like moving troops to different areas and supposedly shutting down uprisings, and it's this long sort of description, and it basically serves as another description of blah 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 lizard aliens taking over. Brain world, similar to Hollow Universe, is another theory for how we exist. However, whereas Hollow Universe applied to our sort of physical reality, this applies more so to our existence within reality. The theory goes something like this. Imagine that everything that we see and is tangible to us exists as a kind of tube or cylinder that moves through the actual dimension of space. This space around us exists in a different plane or has extra dimensions or something similar, and creates a very different existence outside of what we know existence to be. This theory says that we are sort of protected in this tube that we move through, and things such as gravity are effects of us being within this cylinder. Furthermore, this is saying that several supernatural phenomena that can occur, and even gravity itself, can sort of leak through the pipe that we're in, and that's what causes certain real world occasions to happen. Gene pool financialization is an idea that was mainly taken off of the works of Sarah Franklin. Essentially, as cultures become more and more intertwined with each other, we see that certain genes are becoming more and more rare, and with the inevitable buildup of finances, it is the idea that eventually people will be paying for certain genetic alterations, and we will get into a point in which people are valued at a financial level for their genetics. The Flatland UFO theory comes from a book known as The Flatlands, which was written in 19th century England. It follows the idea of the holographic hypothesis, which works as a sort of antithesis to all of the theories we know regarding the greater universe around us. Holographic hypothesis basically works like this. There is no three-dimensional plane that we know as depth. Instead, there are only two dimensions, and depth and volume are an illusion. The background for this is as
well, I can't wait till, because you want to know, like, why I'm still doing this, Leah? I have that autism, like, there are things with me having autism that whenever I think about doing something, I will not stop. So, whatever. Best example I can give, it was me going for a diamond golden fish. Where I was like, I'm determined to get this, and I'm gonna keep doing it no matter what, and I don't want to do anything else until I get that. So that's why I'm doing this. Because in my head, I'm like, I want to keep doing this until I actually, get it. So, just gotta, hopefully see if I can inevitably get this. Like I said, I'm probably gonna keep trying until. What I'll probably end up doing is, like, the next update, in a day and a half, I'll do it on my main account and then let the other 3 accounts keep doing the stairway to whatever.
as matter gets faster, it is less affected by the depth of things around it. Therefore, it could eventually hit the point in which it is not affected by it at all. And instead, dimensions that exist beyond ours are not the super hard to understand abstract concepts and are more so like a painting. So that would mean that we exist as two-dimensional beings that are just going too slow, and therefore the two dimensions are creating this illusion of a third around us. So this theory is saying that things such as UFOs and other phenomena that can occur is simply something from this two-dimensional plane slowing down enough in order to interact with our three-dimensional world, to which they then speed up and then go back into their own, which is the reason for these things appearing then disappearing seemingly at random. Incunabula is the term given to the first ever printed works in human culture. This is basically things that were done right around the time or before Gutenberg invented the movable type printing press. However, the theories get in that some of these things shouldn't necessarily exist, such as works that were printed in a more difficult way in regions.
The reason I mentioned that as well is because once I do inevitably get it, I'm absolutely putting my bottom two accounts and putting them on rank whatevers to level them, to get them to a higher rank. I'm gonna put, because like I said, since I now know how to use an RDP, and the reason also as well, it's such a dumb fucking reason, but the reason I wasn't able to do the RDP when I first tried, because the video didn't tell me I had to go in the goddamn what is it? Didn't tell me I had to go to the users thing and give it administrative permissions. Which I don't know why it didn't, but you know, whatever.
Regions that supposedly that information or printing itself shouldn't have been available, and it leads many to believe that perhaps something about human migration, or at least human education, is being hidden from us for some reason. Tavistock, also known as the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, is a non-profit agency that exists in the UK. From everything I can find on their site, they sort of exist as this social science group that analyzes different demographics and things around the world in order to understand how people work and blah blah blah, all that. However, former MI6 member John Coleman has said that the group's actual directive is in order to change human culture so that one day the new world order can more easily take over. This is done through ideas of breaking down the family unit, breaking down religion, breaking down ideas of abstinence, and yada yada. It's kind of a deep theory, but it relates from everything from the Beatles to the Rolling Stones, saying that they have purposely planted this individualism, lack of God, lack of family ideas within pop culture, so that one day whenever a new body comes in order to take over those roles, the people are more easily accepting of it. The Aetherius Society is a sort of UFO-based religion started by a man named George King. It exists as a plural religion, which means they accept different concepts from several other ideologies such as Buddhism and Christianity in order to create one all-encompassing belief. Among the religion's other teachings is the idea that Jesus and Buddha were aliens from Venus that came to Earth as sort of prophets. They also believe that we are currently waiting on the return of the next master to come and set up a new world establishment on Earth. Several of their theories are interesting, such as that of spiritual batteries. Essentially, they have these composed boxes that members outside of the religion do not know exactly what is in them, that they can pray to and give prana to in order to maintain energy, and then whenever a natural disaster or tragedy is about to occur, they can simply release it from the battery, and that thing that was going to happen will no longer happen. The religion claims that this has been used in order to stop wars, earthquakes, shootings, and other disasters. Not only that, but they claim that there are several other alien races that exist in the greater cosmos that have tried to contact Earth, but that there is an organization on the Earth known as the Silence Group, which entire directive is to make sure that the public does not know of the greater existence of deities. However, people such as George King, the religion's founder, have been able to communicate with these beings and be able to get the truth out to everyone else. Tier 7 is described as the interdimensional monk, and the description reads, The interdimensional monk sees the whole picture and is able to discern reality from unreality. Because of their nature, the mixture of entries around this tier is a really varied one and very difficult to comprehend. Aztec theogony refers to the theological legend of the Aztec people. This is going to come up a few times in this tier, but I'm about to condense hundreds of years of religion and culture into like 1 or 2 minutes. So if I skip over stuff or am not describing it all the way, it's really hard to, so bear with me. This can differ heavily from province to province, especially because in Aztec culture things weren't recorded or passed around that much. But the basics of their theological history go like this. A primary god and goddess lived in heaven, to which the goddess cast down a knife that cut open the earth. When the knife was cast down, 1,600 fallen gods came to earth and essentially became evil spirits. During this time, they called down a great flood, which wiped out the life that was on earth before them. And after these fallen gods were not allowed back into heaven, someone named Axolotl went to Hades to try to retrieve a bone that could be brought out of Hades and used to grant the fallen gods power. But while retrieving the bone, he dropped it. The bone shattered into an inconceivable amount of pieces, and those pieces later grew into what is now humans. These humans began to serve different fallen gods, which is the reason that the cultures and tribes were so diverse and spread out, because each one was a different group of people who followed a different fallen god. At this time, the whole world was covered in darkness. So to stop it, one of the gods built a bonfire, said he needed a sacrifice to walk into the fire, to which one of the humans did, and that human was transformed into the sun. Again, that was a super short, condensed version of thousands of years of theology, so nah. So how does this relate to all of our conspiracy theories? Well, if you'll notice some of the points in it, there's a lot of through lines that connect this to the beliefs in different religions. Think about it this way. Aztec is about as far as you can get geographically and culturally from the ancient Hebrews or Babylonians or Sumerians or something like that. Yet we still see the themes of fallen gods or angels coming from the heavens, a great flood wiping out the population on earth, one of these fallen gods or angels going to hell, humanity following these different lesser gods, and then finally one of these followers of the gods being sacrificed for the greater good and then ascending to the heavens. This is actually a common thread seen in a lot of old religions and traditions, and it's interesting to draw the parallels between them to try to figure out where the roots of not only humanity, but maybe belief in existence itself come from. The parrot is on here, I believe, as a cautionary tale. See, the parrot is a sort of hazing thing when it comes to research communities and researchers. The idea being that anytime a new journalist or researcher or scientist or whatever gets into a field that they have to do case studies, there will be a story comes up that's called the parrot story. Think about it. How many times have you seen a story where it's like a parrot stopped home invaders from breaking into a house because it started making noises that sounded like the police? Or a man caught his wife cheating because the parrot started mimicking the guy that she was cheating with, and so on and so forth. These are all either very mundane stories or stories that just didn't happen and are kind of made to fill up dead space. However, they're also viewed as a sort of rite of passage for new people getting into a research field. Something we're going to see a lot with this iceberg moving forward, especially because a lot of the concepts we're getting to are a lot. There will be more and more things similar to this parrot story. I'll point them out as we get along when I know something is disinfo, but this is a specific example of what disinfo might be. Real dowsing and Robdomancy is in reference to dowsing, which I mentioned all the way in, I think, tier 2. If you'll remember, dowsing is the trick in which you can hold metal bars or crossed wires and use that to figure out where water wells or spiritual areas are around the earth. Robdomancy is very similar. In the most simple version, people in ye olden days would take a stick, place it upright, let it fall, and whichever direction it fell, that would be the one they were to travel in. This was also used to make decisions. In other words, you could say fall right for yes, left for no. And it's even cited in things like the Bible as Nebuchadnezzar using Robdomancy as a way to make his decisions. What's interesting is, especially in biblical text and text at the same time, there's mention of Robdomancy and things similar to dowsing as a form of divination, which is essentially witchcraft. Historically, people who have done...
They also use these for fucking ghost hunting too, to like communicate with spirits. Like, I learned it from that bitch, not that bitch, that person, girl, Brittany Broski, the kombucha girl or whatever. because what is her mom is a real life psychic and like spiritual hunter or that type of thing. So
either as a means of determining where to put in a water vein or traveling in whatever direction, have used witchcraft or black magic familiar spirits as a means of utilizing this technique. Not only that, but there's a case to be made in historical records for people who did dowsing professionally or for others always becoming ill and with some sickness, implying that maybe something they were working with in order to do the dowsing proved to be harmful, or if this really is a black magic, maybe they're just suffering the long-term effects of it. Faust nonfiction is in reference to the very famous play Faust. The original inspiration for the story Faust came from a man named Johann Faust. He was an alchemist and a necromancer, which, if you've been watching The Iceberg to this point, you know are risky business. And according to the belief of many at the time, he himself made a deal with the devil in order to obtain the abilities of alchemy and necromancy. This inspired the Marlowe play known as The Tragical History of the Life and Death of Dr. Faustus. Here's what's interesting. At the exact same time in Poland, a story known as the Legend of Pan Twardowski was picking up a lot of steam because there was legends in that region of people making deals with the devils and then being taken to hell for it. Now, the story didn't get as famous as it is today until a man named Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, wow, made the poem Faust that was later adapted into the great play. However, all of these corresponding legends came together and was about the same story of a man who met the devil at a crossroads and gave his soul to the devil so he could take instant gratification over long-term gratification. This story inspired works like Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. However, when you look into some of the more supernatural tales of it, like Tommy Johnson and Robert Johnson, American blues singers who were supposedly part of a crossroad deal in which they sold their soul to the devil in order to play music, and records dating back further and further, it seems that the legend of Faust didn't just come from a place of fiction, but experiences that were shared by great communities and later became stories. So that all asks the question, is Faust based on a true story? Alright, so hypersigils is a really crazy concept. Sigils are traditionally used in magic and witchcraft in order to summon or bind certain spirits. I.e., you could put one up to bring in a demon or angel or entity, or a different kind to make them do your bidding. A hypersigil, or super sigil as they're sometimes called, are used to completely transform one's own life by slightly...
Leah, you missed it earlier. I found out you could go through YouTube comment history from the beginning of time, and we went through my comments I made back when I was like 11 and 12 on YouTube.
Recreating it with alterations. What's that mean? Well, the example that's most often used is, say you made a book series about someone that you knew, and the entire book series was so close to that person's livelihood that you could tie the two of them in as the same person. However, when you get to the 5th issue of the book, you begin writing minor alterations to that person's character, saying they're more bossy or they're more snobby or whatever personality change you want. That person, because they're now spiritually linked to that book series, would begin acting the way they were being written. What that means is not just individuals you know, but people in places of power could be affected by what others say about them, even if they don't mean it to be that way. This all has to do with spiritual connections and the greater spiritual world around us, meaning that if there exists an essence that is close enough to your essence, the two become intertwined, and whatever changes one changes the other. So think about that in our age of technology and social media. Think about everything that you do online to a persona that is essentially you alters you yourself, even if you don't mean it to. The broader implication that we have essentially built millions or billions of hypersigils without knowing it, therefore changing the course of human history, is really cool. Amazon forest was built, used to be a joke, but now has a lot of weight to it. See, unlike most forest or wooded areas, the Amazon forest is pretty flat. Think about it. If you look at any other wooded area in the world, there's all these hills and elevation changes to it, whereas the Amazon rainforest is pretty flat and called the Green Inferno for a reason. The reason for this is that the ancient tribes of the area did not do agriculture with standard crops the way we think, but they did it with trees. They would harvest the wood and the sap and the water and the fruits from the trees in the way that we may do corn or something similar. We can see this whenever we look at cities that are located in the rainforest and how around them there is an abundance of biodiversity in the trees and flora of the area, and as you leave the city, it becomes more and more sparse. This implies the existence of garden cities that used to exist as a means of agriculture, and then the trees naturally populated. So there's a very good chance that a lot, if not the majority, of the rainforest was planted by humans thousands and thousands of years ago. Or at least the trees that would go on to create the rainforest. The Gatekeeper's Remorse is a reading list that's been floating around the internet for a few years. See, gatekeepers, whenever we're talking about them in the sense of these conspiracies, means someone who claims to be looking for the truth but is actually just pushing people to the wayside. Think of it this way. Say you have an author who is supposedly trying to look for the secrets of humanity, and they do that by writing several books about evolution, although the actual way we got here is alien lizards or whatever. So they spend all this time writing books for higher powers as a means of pointing people in the wrong direction. The Gatekeeper's Remorse is implying that several of these authors have had a change of heart, or they felt guilty about it and created a book or a text in order to point people back the right way. Some examples of this include Omphalos by Philip Gossa, which is a book in which someone talking about the beginning of the world says perhaps the earth was just made old. In other words, the universe and our planet isn't as old as we think it is. Or The Beginning Was the End by Oscar Mayer, in which Oscar says that the way that we got here as humans is that we used to be apes, and then we could figure it out that we eat other apes, and then when we did that, we stole their brain functions and became higher order species. Yeah. Here's the reading list if you're interested in any of those or think any of them might sound cool, because there's some really weird stuff in here. Broder's engine is essentially a schematic for an infinite energy machine. See, if you take a malleable metal like copper and then make it in a coil around a magnet, whenever you push the magnet through, it causes the electrons inside of the copper to shift. Whenever electrons shift, that creates electricity. So if we've got one coil and one magnet and we do that, we get a bit of electricity. Cool. But what happens if we take 1,000 of them? We all line them up directly in an order, to which whenever the magnet is moved, that causes an electron exchange, which therefore causes power. What if we put them all on a giant sort of lever that gently rocks back and forth, and the way that we power that is we just put a few of these copper magnet combinations at the bottom to power the mechanism that makes all the other magnets move. Say we build enough of these to fill up an entire warehouse, and yada yada, you could follow it to the point that you could power a whole city through perpetual energy. While this has worked in closed experiments, the whole idea is we can't do it because big oil and evil electricity companies and all that good stuff. In 2009, 28-year-old Shania Asom suffered an asthma attack while she was in Memphis, Tennessee. She went to the doctor, got a steroids injection, and went home, and everything seemed fine until she started to itch all over her body. She soon started developing scabs all over her skin, her legs began to darken, and the doctors couldn't figure out what the condition was, although they expected staph or some other common skin infection. However, despite all of their efforts, they couldn't make the infection go away, and after traveling to a dermatologist, it was determined that Shania had a since unknown disease. For a reason that to this day no one can explain, every hair follicle on her skin is producing about 12 times the amount of skin that it's supposed to. This causes extreme callousing everywhere on her body that hair is supposed to be, creating an effect where it seems as if her hair follicles are growing skin so dense it's similar to a nail. And to this day, doctors have absolutely no clue what it is. They're continuing doing tests, trying to figure out the causation, but as far as they know, her hair follicles are just overproducing skin, and they're none the wiser to it. Appendix monkey tail.
But is that like a bad thing? Like, is she gonna die because of it, or is it just gonna look like she got goosebumps 24/7?
Is saying that perhaps our appendix operates in the same way our monkey tail would. It's believed that our tailbone is a product of what is now called a vestigial organ, or in other words, an organ that we needed at some point in the past that we outgrew in the modern day, meaning that our tailbone used to be where a tail was attached, but now that we don't have a tail, the tailbone's kind of useless. It's now been determined that perhaps the appendix was used as a sort of digestive reboot, as a means of completely flushing the body system if it were to be too backed up by plant matter or bones or something that would be otherwise undigestible. But since we haven't eaten those things in so many years, we've slowly lost the use of it. So again, much like our tailbone, it's something that's just there because we used to need it and now we don't, and it kind of just takes up space. This is what I get for doing the disturbing movie Iceberg. Like, there's going to be one of these horrible things in every video I do.
Concrete enemas? What?
From this point on, so cool. All right, so you see the word, it's there, right? So according to this theory, that is used as a rite of passage in several secret societies. The reason for this is that an unholy amount of people report to the emergency room every year with this because they use the concrete to perform that action and then they get stuck. But it's at such an alarming rate that people believe cults are responsible or doing it as some horrible satanic rite of passage or whatever. It's just trying to explain why people are the way that they are. The dog suicide bridge is in reference to the Overton Bridge in Milton, Scotland. Ever since the 1960s, an absurd amount of dogs have leaped to their death from this bridge. Keep in mind, this isn't a small bridge at all. It's 50 feet off the ground, and it doesn't really make sense for dogs, an animal that seemingly never commits suicide, to just jump off at such a given rate. It's so bad that dogs walking beneath the bridge will climb to the top just to jump off, and dogs that have jumped, survived, will limp their way back up to the top just to jump again. The primary theory that scientists have had around the area is that perhaps there are several minks nesting, and them marking their scent makes the dogs go for it, which sure would make sense, but that doesn't explain why dogs that are already down there around where the mink would be would climb to the top just to jump, or especially why a dog would jump, climb back up, then jump again. Especially since, according to legend, this has been going on since the 1960s. Many believe this to be a demonic or spiritual site in which spirits or the supernatural...
That's so fuck. That's honestly where you should take your dog if, like, they're at the end of their life. Just be like, alright, Fluffy, let's go.
overwhelms these dogs to commit suicide from the bridge. I should also mention that in research for this, I found a story of in 1994, a man killed his newborn son on the bridge and then attempted to kill himself. While the stories go that dogs have been doing this on the bridge since the 1960s, the first official reported cases of dogs jumping off began shortly thereafter. Just food for thought. Pro-war Buddhism is the fact that throughout history there have been different cases of Buddhists becoming pro-war or pro-defense in order to protect themselves. Buddhists are traditionally known as very hardcore pacifists all the way into the face of death, or at least the traditional Buddhist monks are. While it's well known that in South Vietnam around 1963, whenever there was heavy Buddhist oppression occurring in the area, Buddhists began to make very open protest and shut down roadways in response to the killing of Buddhists that was happening under the Vietnamese regime. What is lesser known is some of the more modern instances. I also want to emphasize I'm not saying anything about overarching religion or like specific ins and outs of religious beliefs in certain areas or Thailand. I am again describing a very complex situation in a couple minutes. So
Wait, hold on. What's happening now? What the fuck? Dog, we're doing this again? We're doing the fucking... Oh my god.
Again, bear with me. In Thailand in 2004, several Buddhist monks were attacked and killed by Muslim attackers. In response to this, several of these Buddhist monks began to arm themselves. Now, traditionally in Buddhist beliefs, this is completely shunned. However, there were interesting ways that they worked around it. For example, as you can imagine, a Buddhist monk cannot be a member of the military. However, the Thai military began these suspended enlistment programs in which you could kind of be part of the military, but not really part of the military. So the sorta in the military people became traditional monks in order to protect other monks that existed in the Thai region. One of the stories I was reading was an interviewer who was speaking with one of these monks in 2006, and they asked the monk if it was true that some of the monks were arming themselves, and the monk lifted up his robe, pulled out a handgun, put it back, and they just continued the interview. It's a very interesting example of how far even the most peaceful people will go if they're pushed, or as the saying says, even a worm will turn. The Akashic Records put forward by psychic Edgar Cayce is a means of better understanding psychicness itself. According to Cayce, whenever he would conduct psychic links with people, he would for one connect to them, but the second connection would be to something that he called the Book of Life. He describes this as a sort of cloud storage that exists all around us and everywhere at the same time. It contains the memories, thoughts, actions, and beliefs of every human that has ever existed. According to Cayce, we are all connected through this superlink, and possible memories or glimpses and even dreams that we have at any given point can either be from another human who's experienced them, or a combination of all the different brain patterns mixing with ours at the same time. Cloud farming, or cloud seeding, is exactly what it says. Throughout history, there have been cases of governments purposefully farming clouds in order to get whatever agricultural benefit they want. This is done by planes depositing chemicals into the air that encourage precipitation. The most common is like potassium iodes, or even dry ice being used in order to begin to form ice crystals and therefore create snow. However, historically, sometimes things like silver iodes have been used, which aren't good for people to, like breathe in or drink or something like that. See, the thing with it is, this isn't necessarily creating rain clouds, it's just a way to encourage rain cloud formation. So if you know that rain clouds are about to form, you can deposit them into an area in order to speed it up and move the direction the cloud will travel. This has led to countries like China having their neighbors accuse them of literally stealing the rain, so that China can have better agriculture and crops than they do. Limbic brain is often used as an excuse of why some people do the things that they do. See, whenever we're comfortable, happy, and accepted in a situation, we operate using our prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain most commonly associated with reason and complex thought patterns. However, sitting just below and behind our prefrontal cortex is something that's often called the limbic brain. This is our system that derives on emotion and instinct. Whenever we're operating off of it, we're much more manic and reactive and emotional whenever we're put into a situation. This isn't only the fight or flight response that you may be familiar with, but also things like heartbreak or loneliness, and how we kind of rely on our emotional state rather than our logical state. Obviously, this isn't a state of mind that you want to keep up for any amount of time. So putting it short term, whenever you're happy, part of a group, and content, you are thinking logically, and whenever you're alone, depressed, and unsure of your purpose in life, you're thinking emotionally. This is kind of obvious, but where it matters is in its sociology implications. Part of the reason that people may do evil things is simply because they do not want to be reverted to their limbic brain and have to interact on their own. Or in other words, people don't want to be alone, so they will do things that may be morally reprehensible in order to fit in. Emergency broadcast neuralizers is referencing the sounds that are heard at the beginning of an emergency broadcast. See, the concept of a neuralizer is that it homes in on specific brain waves or syncs out brain waves in order to manipulate memory or thought patterns or something like that. The thought is emergency broadcasts are used to either forcefully calm you, alter your memory, or change your perception of events around you. Basically, emergency broadcast systems are used as a means of forced complacency on the population. This is another one of those misinfo ones. However, it's at least a fun misinfo one. There is an entire chart, huge theory to this thing, which I will link in the description, about how The Simpsons is actually real footage taken through a wormhole of another United States government that radioactively hurt the people, and blah, 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 blah. weird hokey pokey science stuff. However, this is an example of misinfo because this is put on the list, as I've mentioned before, and with the parrot as a means of subverting wandering eyes. Because once again, think about it this way: if there's stuff down here that matters, and if there's stuff down here that could be serious that you don't want other people to see, whenever they look at a list that says something along the lines of The Simpsons is real footage, they go, oh, okay, it's just more weird hoax lizard alien people stuff. So as mentioned before, this is a parrot. Roman metaphysics takes heavy inspiration from Greek metaphysics, or what is essentially the study of what's real. See, ancient Greeks philosophers were constantly looking for ways to better describe life or to describe the world around us. Metaphysics was an attempt to define what is real or what can be determined in the real world. There were two primary competing philosophies within ancient Greek, one of which being that we must always rely on our senses to determine what's real in a world that's ever changing, or that we must always rely on logical reasoning because our senses can lie to us in this changing world. Plato best described it as this: say that we have a chair, and we all understand what a chair means. Well, if we exclusively use our senses to tell us what a chair is, and we only know what one kind of chair looks like, does that mean a chair can only be what we think it should look like, or can there exist different forms of chairs? On the other side, we can't always just be logical or use reasoning to determine it, because say we do something arbitrary like, oh, well, a chair has 4 legs and you can sit on it, that means a cow, a horse, and big dogs are also just forms of chairs. This led Plato and later Aristotle to develop the idea that they refer to as hylomorphism. This is the core concept of the idea that there are forms and matter, and that despite changes, there must always be some constant, even if we're not aware of it. Put most simply, it's a roundabout way of saying that a chair can look like a ton of different things, but we know what a chair is, so that's still a chair, which means it's got to have something in common with every other chair that exists, even if they don't look anything alike. A lot of this metaphysics gets into ideas of how it applies to people. For example, Aristotle said that despite he did not exist beforehand, his form and matter was still created into the creature that is now known as Aristotle. Therefore, there has to be through lines, even if unseen, that connect whatever present self exists to the past and future self. What's so interesting is that despite being written in ancient Greek times and then adapted into Roman times, these are basically the modern principles that we use for theoretical physics. That things have to have constants in order to be understood as they apply to a greater world that we know not of, and how these connections can be manipulated. It's so interesting that all the way back then they were unintentionally, or possibly intentionally, laying the groundwork for the greater universe as we see it today. Prison Earth refers to the idea that we exist on an earthly prison. Think of it this way. Throughout all of human history, there has always been a need and a struggle for something. On the grand scale, it's been order, resources, agriculture, or in the modern day of power and wealth, all the way down to the individual, fighting for personal recognition or even just the ability to breathe and take in food. Now, of course, this is all we know of life to be, and it's hard to imagine a life without it, but perhaps this constant need for something implies that we are supposed to exist in a realm of pure ecstasy, or a realm of pure not need. Thrive, that's the word. A place where we thrive instead of survive, yeah. So that's like the philosophy side of it. Here's the creepy moon part. A lot of these theories say that the moon itself was constructed. Examples being, geological samples have said that the moon is older than the Earth. Craters on the moon have been identified as depressions. In other words, they have been sucked in from within the moon. The prevailing theory behind this is that the moon itself is hollow moon theory, or at least whatever structure is inside of it is allowing this extra space to cave in. There is a completely abnormal amount of titanium on the surface of the moon, and several seismic activities have been reported on the surface of the moon despite nothing causing them. In other words, whatever's doing it had to come from the inside, leading to the belief that many of this prison Earth theory have, that the moon itself was made as an observatory to watch us from, and is essentially acting as our giant warden, making sure that we don't get too far from the Earth. And then you could tie this in and say that with the Mars bunker theory, that was our prison before, and then we got sent to this one. And if we ever try to go past the realm of the moon, we'll get shot down or something like that. And that's what the 9 minutes of the missing Apollo 11 mission was, and it's all connected. Or just go with the theory that the moon is a giant space monster egg that's going to break out and kill us all. I like that one. Inorganic beings implies the existence of non-carbon life, but not only non-carbon, non-physical. See, this is hard for us to even imagine because everything of our understanding of life exists in the physical or things that interact with the physical, like ghosts or spirits. Think about something that doesn't even exist on the same plane of dimension of us, but does take up the same space. If these things are entirely spiritual or aura-based creatures, then perhaps what they feed on, in the same way we feed on other organic materials, is auras and spirituality itself. You can run a lot of cool theories with this and say that perhaps haunted locations are just these things' feeding ground. And whenever people go there and experience fear, that energy they're giving off through fear provides food for these creatures. You can go even further with that and say perhaps UFO sightings or monster sightings and things like that are mind alterations made on people from these non-organic creatures as a means of maintaining energy. So don't worry, it's not a monster under your bed. It's just a super fourth dimensional spiritual being that is creating fear within your body in order to harvest your energy. So, nothing to be afraid of. Sleep deprivation lifestyle refers to what happens if someone undergoes long-term sleep deprivation. As we know, without sleep for long periods of time, people begin to lose cognitive and social functions. However, there are theories that if someone goes a really long time on amount of sleep deprivation, they will lose functions such as consciousness. There's been a lot of cool theories proposed with this one, that that's what allows the id of our brain to take over, or our more primal self, or perhaps certain spirits or things that exist within this world can inhabit our bodies if we allow that consciousness to be so worn away. I talked about the Russian sleep experiment in like tier 1 or 2 of this iceberg, so imagine this as the practical version to carry out that. Dinosaurs helped build the pyramids. Whenever I saw the conspiracy theory iceberg and wanted to do a video on it, this is what I was hoping for. A lot less depression, a lot more dinosaur. Discovered a few kilometers from the Great Pyramids of Egypt, lesser pyramids have been found that contain papyri that have some interesting transcriptions on them. In these papyri, it talks about giant beasts, or god beasts as they're called, that were used in order to build the pyramids. It says things like they carried the limestone across the rivers and were used to haul the large weighing rocks that were used in order to construct the pyramid. In these transcriptions, whoever wrote them said that they ate the grass of the Nile plains, that their tail was large enough that a swing could kill a whole army, that their neck reached to the clouds, and even contained several inscriptions and images of these supposed creatures. While things like this have always been referenced in, say, Job, that dinosaurs existed much closer to humans than we think, now several Egyptologists, which I didn't know was a thing before researching this, some of them have gotten on board with this and said, yeah, perhaps the pyramids were built with the assistance of dinosaurs, which is the nicest thing I think I've said in this entire iceberg. Anunnaki puppet show relates to the Anunnaki, which I mentioned however many tiers ago, which were the supposed alien gods of the Babylonians and the Sumerians. See, the Sumerians, as I mentioned before with things like the Dogon tribe, had very weird things when it came to their religion and beliefs. Like, for example, they had very accurate tracings of our constellations and our solar system. And as mentioned before, they had these idols of beings that they said came from the stars and taught them science and agriculture and things like that. The Babylonians were very similar. As a matter of fact, some believe the Old Testament translations that were mentioned of these Babylonians, whenever they would talk about the angels coming down or God coming down, was actually just a version of these Anunnaki. So much so that people say the Tower of Babel, in which, according to the Bible, God confused their languages, was actually a space station they were building to go to the stars, to which the Anunnaki then confused their languages. So, yeah. The puppet show belief is that the reason the Anunnaki have done all this is simply for entertainment, and that watching us progress as a society has been this whole escapade that they get a watch from a distance. However, I like the other theory proposed by it. See, several of these Anunnaki images or things we see, although normally reptilian, seem kind of human. The belief being that sometime in the future, we will develop a time travel technology, or at least a different reality version of us will. So then from the future,